Happy New Year, everyone. Um, it's my pleasure to receive all of us back to the platform after what I consider for myself to be a very fulfilling and rewarding holiday season. And I do hope that it was rewarding for all of us. Boqer School has entered another phase, and you will see it in the construct of our classes, but then you will also see it in the activities that we carry out on the ground. Today we are discussing Cain and Abel, a treatise on farmer-header crisis. Cain and Abel, a treatise on farmer-header crisis. My name is Chima Christian. In case you're joining us for the first time, welcome. This is Boqer School of Governance. Boqer School of Governance is a platform dedicated solely to the teaching and the application of biblical wisdom as it applies to contemporary societal issues and governance issues. Here we distill scriptural wisdom and then apply them to our society, so that whatever problems we are facing, whether it's governance, societal problems, political issues, we believe that there is a wisdom of God for such issues, and those are the things we try in Boqer School of Governance. Well, you're welcome again to the class. So today we're looking at farmer-header crisis. So you've probably have heard of farmer-header crisis. And maybe if you're like many people and myself a few years ago, you wouldn't have known that this problem did not start with us. It didn't start with us. That this problem is as far back as Cain and Abel. You see, every government in Africa is either confronting this issue, has confronted the issue, or will yet confront the issue in the near future. And then without a deep understanding of the issues, policymakers and indeed communities who are affected by this crisis, can only fly blind. They are only flying blind, hoping that the band-aid they apply will be able to stick. And if you judge by the number of active conflicts, the number of killed people, the number of displaced communities, displaced individuals, and indeed the whole gamut of the humanitarian disaster occasioned by this farmer-header strife, we can only conclude that help is needed, and urgently so. So as part of our unique contribution to our society, Boqer School of Government is reconvening this evening, the opening for the year, and then the 8th in the 66-part series that we started to discuss Cain and Abel, a treatise on farmer-header crisis. This class will benefit policymakers. This class will also benefit individuals who are living in those crisis-prone areas. This class will also benefit individuals who feel that the issues we are discussing are beyond them. All right, so let's go to look at farmer-header crisis. I'll kick off the conversation with the surface level analysis of farmer-header crisis. So if you go to any policy firm, if you go to any government circle, and you ask them, what is the cause of farmer-header crisis? And then they will give you a lot of things, but the 10 most important, the 10 most recurring is 1, competition for resources. They tell you, there's scarcity of arable land, and there's scarcity of water due to climate change, desertification, and overpopulation. And because of that, there's competition for land and arable land. Then they tell you about encroachment and trespassing. So they tell you things like farmers' land being grazed by herders' cattle and leading to disputes. You hear of ethnic and religious tensions, talking about historical animosities and cultural differences between farmer and herding communities. You hear about weak governance, something like inadequate use of land use policies and enforcement mechanisms as a huge problem. You hear about proliferation of arms, you hear about migration patterns, you hear about economic pressures, right? Especially now Nigeria is witnessing economic issues. The previous government will also witnessed economic issues. In 2008, there was economic recession global. All right, so you hear that economic pressure leads to farmer header crisis. You hear of also lack of conflict resolution mechanisms. And it's true, when you have conflict and it's not resolved, then it tends to break out in form of conflict. You hear also about politicization of conflicts, that the use of crisis is used to further political and economic agendas. You also hear about population growth, and this population growth is coming down as a standalone. That there is increased demand for land, increased demand for food, and increased demand for resources, and that this increased demand also intensifies conflict. Now, some of these things, that's why we call them superficial or surface level analysis. They are good, but at Boqer School, we don't stop at the surface, we go deeper. So let's see. Genesis chapter 2, verse 17. But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day you eat of it, you shall surely die. Meanwhile, if you are on our WhatsApp platform or Telegram platform, there's a particular class we referenced today. I remember that we referenced the class called Mending Interconnectedness, dealing with tribalism, racism, and other faulty touch points of human-to-human interactions. Now, that was the 19th class we taught in the first offering of Boqer School. So that's the 19th class, season 1, class 19. It's called Mending Interconnectedness, dealing with tribalism, racism, and other faulty touch points of human-to-human interactions. Now, you didn't have to have listened to that class or participated in that class for you to make sense of what we're saying today. But there are some foundational concepts we started in that class that we expanded in that class, and that those concepts will find their way into this class. But then, because we've treated them in another class that is a distinct class, we will touch on it today, but we will not go distinct, because going into it will draw us away from our topic. But it's important that if you have not consulted that material, I highly encourage you to do so after this class. It has been posted on our WhatsApp platform. It's also refreshed on our Telegram platform, and then more recently, it's now been uploaded on Boqer School YouTube platform. Of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, Genesis chapter 2:17, you shall not eat, for in the day you eat of it, you shall surely die. So you see, the fall of man introduced death. It introduced near intractable crisis, conflict, and this crisis manifests in 4 distinct yet impactful ways. That simple statement, you shall surely die, manifests in 4 distinct ways. Chima, why are you bringing this thing up? Are we not discussing farmer header crisis? Well, you will soon see. The fall of man impacted 4 things. First, man was disconnected from his God, and there's a huge problem. But there was also a disconnection within man, that this single entity is now disconnected from himself. It's like there is an accident, and this person is bifurcated into 3, and sometimes these 3 are competing. He used to be one person. His spirit, soul, and body is in perfect alignment. But today, this man finds himself into 3 distinct places. And this disconnect is loud. That in the midst of noise, the person can be still. But also in the midst of stillness, there can be noise in the person's spirit. That, for instance, this same man wants to read, but wants to sleep at the same time. That now that man is disconnected from himself, man becomes his own greatest enemy. Today is what, by the date? Today is the 12th of January. You see, if you are used to making New Year resolutions, it is you that made the New Year resolution. But today is the 12th, and you have broken 10 out of those resolutions. The same man that wants to do good finds himself doing evil. He wants to pray, but he wants to sleep. Same person wants to fast but wants to eat. Same person wants to love my neighbor as myself but wants to treat my neighbors in a loving way, but you find yourself lusting after people you should love. You sometimes find yourself placing yourself ahead of the others. St. Paul says that there is a law at work, that I propose to do, I don't do, but what I don't want to do, I do. This is a disconnection within man. So this man is now in a problem of internal strife. Suffix it to say that man is now at war with himself. This one entity found himself, now there is a conflict within man. But this conflict does not stop there. It manifests itself in yet again another distinct variable. Man's disconnect with each other. Now this man has disconnected from God. He's trying to look for him. There's war within this man. He proposes to do something, he doesn't do it. The same person that wants to do something doesn't want to do it. The same person says that he will read the book, doesn't want to read it. He wants to fast but doesn't want to fast. The same person, because there's a bifurcation that his body, his spirit and his soul are in total disalignment. Then there is the disconnect with each other. I'll take that again. Man disconnected from God, disconnected within himself, but now he's disconnected from the other person. That this man finds fault can no longer touch in fact, if you listen to that class, we now said that it has broken down not irretrievably because we have a solution, but that you find that the human to human relationships has broken down, even relationships within siblings, relationship between identical twins, relationship between father and mother, relationship between wife and husband, relationship between cousins, relationship between communities, broken down. Not just that he's disconnected from his maker and that he feels this dissonance within himself, but that this internal conflict now manifests that he can no longer relate well with the people around him. But the fourth is that man disconnected with nature and environment. Now these four entities, we broke them down and dealt with them thoroughly and how to reverse it in the class called Mending Interconnectedness, dealing with tribalism, racism and other four touch points of human to human interactions. So take what you've just heard, put it in one place, and then let us read Genesis chapter 4 verse 1 to 8. Now Adam knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, and said, I have acquired a man from the Lord. Then she bore again, this time his brother Abel. Now Abel was a herdsman. The Bible called him a keeper of sheep. But Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought an offering of the fruits of the ground to the Lord. Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat. And the Lord respected Abel and his offering, but he did not respect Cain and his offering. And Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. So the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry, and why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin lies at the door, and its desire is for you, but you shall rule over it. Now Cain talked with his brother Abel, and it came to pass that they were in the field, that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and killed him. Now the emphasis I want to place here is on now Cain talked with his brother Abel. Now Cain talked with his brother Abel. What did they talk about? Because it was now he was envious, apparently. He was offended. Apparently, remember that human to human interaction has broken down, and you will soon see. I will draw 2 lines, just 2. Maybe in the 13th to 14th series of this particular 66-part series, we can draw the 3rd line, but today I'll draw 2. What did they talk about? Now they talked, and it came to pass that they talked and he killed him. They talked and he killed him. What did they discuss? Let's find out. So we will go to a book called the Book of Jasher. Now I will tell you a lot about the Book of Jasher, but in the Book of Jasher it recommends itself to you. So if you go to Book of Jasher chapter 1 verse 14 to 28, you can find out what they talked about in the Book of Jasher. Now the Book of Jasher is one of those deuterocanonical books, one of those books that were not canonized, but then it has some part of history that is useful to understanding of what. Because what you can understand if you read just Genesis is that he was angry and he killed him. And it is true, but that anger manifested itself in a way that we're going to find out. So I'm reading Jasher chapter 1 verse 14 to 28. And the boys grew up, and their father gave them a possession in the land. And Cain was a tiller of the ground, and Abel a keeper of the sheep. If you've been to Boqer School, pay attention to any underlined scripture, because we can read the same scripture and have different emphasis. For instance, you would notice that this was the same scripture we read in the last class, right? This was the same scripture we read in the last class, when God came to Cain and told him, sin is at the door, but the desire is for you. You should rule over it. That was how we discussed ungoverned spaces. But today our emphasis is on talking. We want to find out what they talked about. So pay attention to the underlying scriptures. And if you're a person that mark your scriptures, also mark some of those places that we're marking so that you can reference them in the future. And the boys grew up, and their father gave them a possession in the land. Jasher chapter 1 verse 14. We're reading all through to 28. And Cain was a tiller of the ground, and Abel a keeper of sheep. And it was at the expiration of a few years that they brought an approximating offering to the Lord. And Cain brought from the fruit of the ground, and Abel brought from the firstlings of his flock, from the fat thereof. And God turned and inclined to Abel and his offering. And a fire came down from the Lord from heaven and consumed it. And unto Cain and his offering the Lord did not turn, and he did not incline to it, for he had brought from the inferior fruit of the ground before the Lord. And Cain was jealous against his brother Abel on the account of God honoring his offering. So Cain was what? Jealous. So it coincides, or it agrees with what was written in Genesis chapter 1. And Cain was jealous against his brother Abel on the account of this, and he sought a pretext to slay him. He sought an excuse to kill him. And in some time after, Cain and Abel his brother went one day into the field to do their work. Remember, one was a herdsman and one was a farmer. And they were both in the field, Cain tilling and plowing his ground, and Abel feeding his flock. And the flock passed that which Cain had plowed in the ground, and it sorely grieved Cain on this account. What is happening here? Cain had finished farming, and Abel's cattle went into his farm. And it sorely grieved Cain on this account. And Cain approached his brother in anger. So now there was jealousy, and then there is anger. And he said unto him, What is there between me and thee, that thou hast come to dwell and bring thy flock to feed in my land? And Abel answered his brother Cain and said unto him, What is there between me and thee, that thou shalt eat the flesh of my flock? Because I give you meat from my animal, and clothe thyself with their wool. And now therefore, put off the wool of my sheep which thou hast clothed thyself, and recompense me for their fruit and flesh which thou hast eaten. And when thou shalt done this, I will then go from thy land as thou hast said. We killed Nama yesterday, you ate the meat. The wool from my cattle, now you dey use take do your clothes. Pay me for the meat and remove the clothes you are wearing, then I will take my flock away from your land. And Cain said to his brother Abel, surely if I slay thee this day, who will require thy blood from me? And Abel answered Cain, saying, surely God who has made us in the earth, he will avenge my cause, and he will require my blood from thee, should thou slay me. For the Lord is the judge and arbiter, and it is he who will requite man according to his evil, and the wicked man according to his wickedness that he may do upon the earth. And now if thou shouldst slay me here, surely God knoweth thy secret views, and will judge thee for the evil which thou didst declare to do unto me this day. And when Cain heard the words which Abel his brother had spoken, behold, the anger of Cain was kindled against his brother Abel for declaring this thing. And Cain hastened up and took the iron part of his plowing instrument. I have marked it, iron part of his plowing instrument. We'll come back to that. With which he suddenly, also marked suddenly, smote his brother and slew him. And Cain spilled the blood of his brother Abel upon the earth, and the blood of Abel streamed upon the earth before the flock. And after this, Cain repented, having slain his brother, and he was sadly grieved. And he wept over him, and it vexed him exceedingly. And Cain rose up and dug a hole in the field. He knows how to dig grounds, where he put his brother's body, and he turned the dust over it. That's the first burial. And the Lord knew what Cain had done to his brother. And the Lord appeared to Cain and said unto him, where is Abel thy brother that was with thee? What did they discuss? These touch points, there is the bifurcation between man and God. There is the internal strife in the heart of the man. Then there is the strife between one man to each other. And then there is this. So where we are dwelling today is on the strife between one to another. First, something has to die in a man before he can take the life of another. And so when God told Adam, if you eat this, you will die. By the way, it didn't start with Cain, and I will show you. First, when a man is dead, as a result of that death, he will turn everything that is designed for his advantage into a disadvantage. Look at the plant-animal life cycle. The animals eat the plants, and the plants eat the animals, because the animals produce manure that refreshes the earth. So Cain and Abel have a mutually beneficial ecosystem. The farmer and the herder has a mutually beneficial ecosystem. But because there's a breakdown of interconnectedness which has not been mended, you now say that this man turns whatever is designed for his advantage into a disadvantage. It didn't start with him. Let's trace that of his father. I said I'll draw two lines. The first line is to see that this happened in the life of his father. Genesis chapter 3 verse 9 to 12. Then the Lord called to Adam and said to him, where are you? So he said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he said, who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you that thou shalt not eat of? Then the man said, the woman whom you gave me to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate. The woman that was designed to be his helpmeet, he found a way to convert it into a disadvantage. Now, the Bible did not provide us much context as to what happened between Adam and Eve after this interaction. But I can imagine, I want you to imagine what happens to the family when a man like Adam has lost his estate, has lost his relationship with his God, has been kicked out of Eden, now has to plow the ground. Now all the animals are against him. He used to pet lions, now lion devours him. Mosquitoes used to sing for him, now mosquitoes bite him. He's at a total disequilibrium. When he says, I will do this in the morning, he does it. Today he says, I will do it. And he finds that himself that wants to do it doesn't want to do it. And guess what? All of these problems are as a result of Eve, according to him. Now I leave you to imagine what kind of family that will be if a man totally blames his wife for all his misfortunes. There's a breakdown between man and the other. Once you have eaten of this, you will die. Your relationship with each other will die. Again, I'll refer you to that class on mending interconnectedness. I'm tempted to go into it, but I will not, because we have quite a number of things to cover. So Cain and Abel probably grew up in an environment when the father is perpetually sad with the mother, blaming her for his problem. Meanwhile, it was his choice, because Adam had the choice whether to eat or not to eat. But of course, once you are dead, you can no longer see things rationally. Your problem is your uncle that caused it. It's your cousin. It's because your mother. It's because of you are this way because of your village people. It's no. You don't take responsibility. It must be the other person. And that was probably the kind of dysfunction that Cain and Abel was raised in. That is the first line of dysfunction I want to show you today. So what started as a blame game between spouses? Of course, if Adam wakes up in the morning and says, this useless woman, you are the one that caused this problem. Yeah, man, why did you eat? It started as a mere blame game between two parties. Now it has escalated to a murder between siblings. That is the 40 touch points of human to human existence. If you read before you get to the 14th chapter of Genesis, you will see that what started as a blame game turned into a murder has now gone into a full-blown war between people groups. This man is at war with God. He is at war with himself. He is at war with everyone else, and he's at war with his environment. It is in the heart of this unhelped man that we can now say, let's go back to look at the superficial analysis of farmer-header crisis again. Is it really a competition for resources? Is it really encroachment and trespassing? Is it really ethnic and religious tension? Is it really weak governance? Is it really proliferation of arms? Is it really economic pressure? Is it really lack of conflict resolution mechanisms? Is it politicization of conflict? Is it as a result of population? Yes, but it is deeper. All of these things are manifestations, are the symptoms of an underlying problem. Let's go deeper. It cannot be as a result of climate change. That's one of the things I want to disabuse, because you cannot solve a problem you don't understand. It is not as a result of, so farmer-header crisis has very little to do with climate change. Because compared to now, the climate that Cain and Abel enjoyed were terrible. Yet, farmer-header crisis. It cannot be because of arms. They have not invented AK-47 and other light weapons yet, but he found a way to kill. It is not the gun that kills. It cannot be because of the economy. It can't. Maybe it's connected, but this is not the root cause. The economy is not the root cause. Because even in times of plenty, farmer-header crisis, it has nothing, very little to do with land. Did you know that there were just 2 people living in the whole world? It's not about land, dear brothers. And I want you to understand it, because some of you are going to be making policies around this issue. You have a deeper level of understanding of what the issue is. If you don't understand the problem, you won't find a solution. You are only applying bandage, hoping that it will stick. Just 2 people in the whole of the whole world. Sorry, whole earth. And you know, contain them. When people say it's farmer header, let me show you a map. This is a map describing how the United States of America uses its land. I want you to see the map that I'm talking about. Now, this red place that I circled, this is the whole of the United States. By the way, this is a 2017 survey by the United States Department of Agriculture Economic Research Service. And this 2017 survey was reported by Bloomberg. And you see the whole of United States. See the small portion in red, that's where they have their houses. And they have 145 million housing units. 145 million housing units, see the small space. United States of America can take 1 billion housing units and it will not scratch the surface. It's not about land. That's what I want to prove to you. I'll show you the land use in Nigeria. Are you seeing how they used satellites to map the land and see the distribution? How does Nigeria and Africa use its land? Now, there's no satellite data. But have you noticed the vast unproductive land you see when you travel across Nigeria? Or when you fly at low altitude, say you are taking off or entering into the airport or landing, do you see those spaces? Have you considered that our farming method and land use is wasteful? Especially in the north central, in the northwest, and in the northeast. Wasteful use of, look at small Israel. Look at what they are producing. Look at what we have arable land. You know that Israel as a country produces more food than we collectively produce in Nigeria. And the whole country, you can fit it into one state in Nigeria and you have change. Wasteful use of land. I actually live in the middle of a farmer header crisis hotspot. If you travel and visit these places, you will see vast underutilized land. Even where they are struggling for, it is not land, brothers and sisters. You will travel. If you take all the cows in Nigeria and you multiply it by 200 million, they will not still be able to graze up to 5% of Nigeria's land. I want you to see that the issue is beyond land. Land may be the manifestation at the surface level, is beyond it. Because when you see the places they've killed, oh yeah, now take over the land. Now they will not. They don't have enough cows to graze. Even the farmers don't have enough manpower to farm all the land they have. I encourage you to travel. Let me talk about this population thing, and people have been trying to demonize population and all of those things. Believe me, we have not used more than just a scratch of the earth's resources. Did you know that God did not create man to die? They say we are 8 billion people, right? From the time of Adam till now, all of us would have been here and it will fit us perfectly. The whole of United States, less than 25% of their land is utilized. China is even worse. When you hear overpopulation in China, China has not used up to 17% of its land mass. Nigeria, I don't know the statistics, but we obviously we have not. Did you guys know that man was not supposed to die? Do you know about the undiscovered natural resources, the ones we have not discovered? The ones we pass every day, but we don't even know what to do with it. This same silicon that people, what are those rare earth metals? Did you know it was there in Adam's days? He didn't know what to do with them. He didn't have the technology to extract them. As we live, if Christ tarries to come, generations after us, we will be primitive compared to their technology. You know how many million qubits of things God put on this earth? And if you have totally exhausted the earth, have you exhausted the land, sea, and the space and other planets? Very soon you will see man dominate other planets, not just the earth. Have we dominated the sea? Have we utilized the land? There's empty spaces everywhere. So if it is indeed that all the cows in Nigeria, multiply them by 200 million, that they cannot still graze in Nigeria, what is the problem? Why are we killing each other? There's a dysfunction. There's that war in the heart of a man. Well, let's move on to the next subtopic. Every possession is as a result of warfare. You need to fight to obtain, and you need to fight to keep. Whatever it is you have now, there is a warfare. And this is something that people who live in these communities should know. You can't just have land, you must be able to protect it. That's one of the reasons God sent them out of Israel, to send them to Egypt. They were just few. And you can't take the promised land. You are now beginning to rapidly expand in a land that does not belong to you. More so, his children, I'm talking about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob's children were beginning to act in ways that displeases God. And he moved them to Egypt to protect them and have them populate them, to acquire the stature to hold the land before he moved them back to the land. By the way, that land, Abraham lived in that land, Isaac lived in that land, Jacob lived in that land, but he moved them for 430 years so that they can acquire sufficient capacity to retain the land. Every land is as a result of a conquest. Now I will show you. By the way, when you see wars anywhere or conflicts, there are two major things people fight for in a conflict, any given conflict. They are fighting over ideas, ideological conflicts. Religious conflicts fit under this. Political conflicts fit under this. But most importantly, they can start from ideas, but they quickly move to tangibles. They are fighting over stuff. Over land, over water, over something, over territories, they are fighting over tangibles. We will deal with war maybe in the 14th class. To prove to you that every land is as a result of conquest, I want you to read Deuteronomy chapter 2 and Deuteronomy chapter 3. I'm going to read selected verses from this. Deuteronomy chapter 2 verse 24 to 25. Rise up, set out on your journey and cross the river Arnon. See, I have given Sihon, the Amorite, king of Heshbon, and his land into your hand. Begin to possess it and engage him in battle. Every land you have is as a result of warfare. And the Lord said to me, see, I have begun to give Sihon and his land over to you. Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 31 to 34. Begin to possess his land so that you can inherit it. Then Sihon came out against us, he and all his people, to fight at Jahaz. And the Lord our God handed him over to us, and we defeated him and his sons and all his people. And at that time we took over all his cities and utterly destroyed the men and the women and the little ones of each city. We left not one remaining. Have you asked yourself, what happens to those communities where you hear herdsmen attack, burnt down the communities? After such attacks, by the time they sustain the attack, the people who own the land run away into IDP camps. If they cross the country, we now call them refugees. Another set of people will come and stay in the land. Deuteronomy chapter 2 verse 31. You did not go to the land of the children of Ammon, or to the place along the river Jabbok, or to the towns in the hill country, only going where the Lord our God commanded us. Deuteronomy chapter 3 verse 2 to 6. And the Lord said to me, do not be afraid of him, for I will give him and all his people and his land into your hand, and you will do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon. So the Lord our God gave us also Og, the king of Bashan, and all his people into our hands, and we defeated him until not one of his was left remaining. And at that time we took all of his cities. There was not a city which we did not take from them. 60 cities, the whole region of Argob, the kingdom of Og in Bashan. All the cities were fortified with high walls, gates, and bars. Besides, there were a great many unwalled towns, and we utterly destroyed them, as we did to Sihon, king of Heshbon, utterly destroying the men, women, and children of each city. Possession is as a result of warfare. Now look at the current map of Africa. Some people felt comfortable, and they sat in Berlin and divided the map of Africa. It was as a result of conquest. If our great-grandfathers didn't lose those wars, we will not be speaking English today. And if we don't win our own war, our great-grandchildren may not speak English. They may be forced to speak Chinese. Look at the map of Africa. You know that there are some. Many of you don't know that there's a country called Western Sahara. It's a country. It is now occupied by Morocco. You see this play out in interstate boundary disputes. Till today, Nigeria has not started out this boundary between state and states. Intercommunal boundary and land crisis, because anytime you see a map is a field, map is now, anytime you see a map of any country, it is drawn on that ink is the blood of men. Look at the territory of where you call the USA. Did you know that the people living there now are not people who owned it? They are aborigines, they are original Americans, they are Native Americans, they've been displaced. Where you call the United States of America, the land of that land, it was taken. So I read to show you how the Middle East was taken. Anytime you are powerful, you redraw the map. Have you seen that the map of USSR? At least you know that of USSR. In the last 40 years, you've seen how it was big, it disintegrated, now it's getting bigger again. In 2008, they annexed Crimea. Believe me, after the war with Ukraine is done, and it will be done in less than 2 years, I see it. This is me analysis, because Trump is committing to ending the war. Believe me, all those grounds Russia took, they are keeping it until Ukraine is able to find the muscle to take it back. So be looking at the map of Russia and see how it has changed between 2008 and now. See how it will further change after the end of the war with Ukraine. I've referred to the annexation of Crimea. Now see the ongoing conflict in Nigeria's northeast region, and see how it has pushed original community members out of their communities into IDP camps, and it has put new people there. See what is going on in the north central. See what is going on in the northwest. Dear brothers and sisters, what you are seeing is beyond mere fight. It is a conquest, and it has always been like this since the fall of man. Today, there's a brewing conflict in China. You know, China used to be bigger than what it is currently. The Han Dynasty. That's why they are fighting over Taiwan. And if America does not take time, in less than 10 years, it will be an open armed confrontation with China over Taiwan. Till today, there is the Pakistani-Indian border dispute. Even in your villages, you notice it now. When your village boys mobilize, they will go and drive out and kill people from the other community and burn properties, and that land becomes part of your village land. When one rich man in that village wakes up, he now empowers the people of his village with guns, and they will come back and kill and take. It has been a conquest. If you don't understand this, you will be applying bandage on a problem that is deep. No, it's climate change. Climate. Okay. Problem is deeper than that, and you need to understand it. Every possession is as a result. If our great grandfathers did not lose, we will not be speaking. And you see now, some parts of Cameroon, they speak French, some parts speak English. Even in West Africa, some parts of Africa, I was just mapping, there are about 8, some parts of Africa speak French, Portuguese, what other language again? English language, of course, that I'm speaking because they conquered my great grandparents. Every possession is as a result. Now, it is not enough to acquire. You must acquire and retain it. Because if you come by brute force to acquire, if you no longer have that force, so if your great grandparents acquired something and you no longer have the capacity, it will be taken from you. Okay, before I say that, let's review Nigeria's crisis. So on the issue of farmer header crisis in Nigeria and in many parts of West Africa, the present administration, okay, let's restrict my analysis on this particular issue. I'm restricting my analysis for now. I'll expand it to Africa, but for now, the things I'm going to say for the next 5 minutes is pertinent to just Nigeria. On the issue of the farmer header crisis, the present Tinubu administration is ambivalent, and that is a positive. Nigeria has made tremendous progress on the issue of farmer header crisis between the last administration and this one, and I'll show you how. Why. It's a plus that Nigeria shifted from having a president who was actively interested in an outcome. You had a headsman president, and he was actively interested in an outcome. And see how headsmen advanced rapidly in the 8 years of that man's administration. You know, in my language, they used to say, Ota Kaifala Nota. People who used to use bow and arrow to protect themselves now have automatic rifles. So you move from having one who have taken sides to having a president who is undisturbed. This guy is undisturbed. He's ambivalent. He's not interested. He's not on the side of the farmers, not on the side of the headers. As long as he's not interested. And it's a plus, because you move from one who was interested. He can trample on justice to make sure that he upholds his interest. He can bring it up in Ruga. He can bring it up in anything. He can bring it up in anything. If the policies fail, the people in the bush will come. And if you listen to the interview of this present chief of the defense staff, CDS Musa, I think that interview he granted it at, by this time last year, around January of 2024. These are these are political issues. The military of a country cannot go after a person who the government of it considers a friend. Either you die in that battle or you'll be removed from office. The headers, they are there. He says the military cannot move after. It's a political issue. If the politicians don't solve it, we can't. So you moved from a president who was actively interested in an outcome to a president who is an ambivalent. I'll say some things here and then I'll leave the rest unsaid. One, I told the leaders of the Middle Belt region, I said, Whoever moves the hand of the president will win the war, for now. Because the ideal thing you would have in a president of a country is one who is committed to justice. He is not on the side of the farmer, he's not on the side of the header, he is on the side of justice. Because what you called conquest has now been evolved into state construct. Now, instead of us killing each other over land, let us promulgate what is called a land use act. That now you no longer have to fight and kill to obtain land. For instance, in Lagos, if you wanted land, you buy it. But in some parts of Nigeria today, if you want land, you just have to mobilize herdsmen. So instead of killing each other over land, let us now say that we have a land decree, a land use act. Then anybody that wants property, that this is how you will get the property. So anytime the war stopped, today we are no longer a primitive country, we are now Nigeria, and it is a country guaranteed by laws. Therefore, whoever got the land as at the time we became a country, keep it. If the other guys want, you can now buy. But that state, when it is weak and unable to enforce its laws, people can continue with the conquest. So when United Nations is weak, as it is currently, any guy with might can take over any land. So if Russia wants, it can take over some parts of Ukraine. If Morocco wants, it can take over a whole country and call it Western Sahara and be governing a country. Didn't you see the fight to redraw the map of Nigeria in 1967 to 1970? If the Biafrans had won, the map of Nigeria would have shrunk. Boundary lines are drawn on the blood of men. You need to know this. And so, if there is a conflict around your community, you need to have a historical understanding of what the issues are. So, I did say that for Nigeria, we moved from a president who is actively interested in a particular outcome to one who is ambivalent. Ideal president should be on the side of justice, but this one does not care. Now, what do? Anyone who moves the hand of the president will retain the upper hand. I told leaders in the middle bout. So since you don't have the ideal president, anyone that bends the hand of the presidency will either possess new territories or retain the ones they've acquired by conquest. First, not all the issues you call farmer header crisis in Nigeria is farmer header crisis 1. Some are, some are not. Now, should communities facing armed aggression empower themselves? That's where we're going to. Should we capture the government or at least get the government to uphold justice? Since we now know that it's an open conquest, Ikeketole is by brute force. By the way, in my hometown, the current hometown is Nnewi. Nnewi used to be a small hometown, a small place. It drove out people from Oketiti, drove out people from Orivite, and became large. Let's go to the book of Joshua where we read, chapter 1, verse 21. And Cain hastened and rose up and took the iron part of his plowing instrument. So what you notice there is weapon of attack, with which he suddenly smote his brother. Element of surprise. Now, anytime you see community 49 killed, there's always a weapon of attack. And there's the element of surprise. Now, this element of surprise, it was because it was man to man, it was hand to hand combat. A one man and one, so one Cain, one Abel. So he had to, first of all, help himself with a weapon and did a surprise attack. But where the competing forces are not equal, the aggressor becomes arrogant. That's why these herdsmen now write to communities, tell them we are coming. In Nigeria, they write letters and tell them that we are coming. And they will come and nothing will happen. But where they are equally armed, you now see that they now use the element of surprise. So whoever has superior weapon and whoever has the element of surprise wins. There's something I should say here. God is a God of justice, but He's not a God of instant reward. His reward is sure, but it is not instant. And I've argued why God's reward is not instant. Maybe I should say it in 2 minutes. God's reward is certain, but it's not instant. So, and then you don't even want to have God's instant reward, because it won't be fair that as you are thinking of doing something, a hand will slap you from heaven and you're dead. Maybe men here will understand it. As you guys were coming here today, you saw one damsel. And maybe you want to look back, a hand will slap you and then you are dead. As soon as you think of saying waka, you won't even say, as you are thinking it, you are dead. That's what you want God to be, a God of instant justice. But no, He delays His judgment. He will eventually reward everybody, but not instantly. But He has given man government. Abel, if you allow Cain to kill you, I'll reward. I will avenge your blood when I want to. But you are dead. If that is the case, then communities will have to organize in a way to protect themselves so that they can fulfill their mandates. Everybody will eventually die, but don't die before your time. I've talked about weapon of attack and element of surprise. You must either be armed or have someone hold the arms on your behalf. I'll say it again. You must either be armed or have someone hold the arms on your behalf. And I will argue for the second, that you need to have someone hold the arms on your behalf. We will explore all of them. But it's a compulsory that in this world of fallen man, either you have arms or you have someone who is holding it on your behalf. There is a quote attributed to Achilles Alpheros. It says, if you hold a gun and I hold a gun, then we can talk about the law. If you hold a knife and I hold a knife, then we can talk about the rules. If you come empty-handed and I come empty-handed, then we can talk about reason. But if you have a gun and I only have a knife, then the truth lies in your hands. If you hold a gun and I have nothing, then what you are holding is not just a weapon. You are holding my life. So how should communities facing armed aggression defend themselves? There are 3 options. Number 1 is to do nothing. Number 2 is state protection. And number 3 is self-help. The issue with doing nothing is that you are at the mercy of the armed aggressor. God will still judge you on the final day. But for now, you will enter 6 feet. Remember, you either are armed or you have someone hold the arm for you. And that someone can be state protection. That Nigeria is armed. Is Nigeria's arm working for you? That was what the headsmen did with Buhari. They forced the government arms to work for them. Now the last is self-help. I will explore these things and then we can begin to wrap up the class. The problem with self-help is that even if you declare everyone help yourself, it is still an unequal world. Because, should I tell you guys the amount, how much they sell AK-47? No, it's not necessary. But it's in the millions. It's more than one. One AK-47, yes, it costs more than $1 million. Not everyone can afford it, sir. Like money, you will have the haves and the have-nots. So in gun, you will have the have guns and the have no guns. It's not an equal world. Then you also create a private military contractor for hire, because everyone now has guns. And in a society where laws are broken down, then people can hire people to use their guns. So I have one gun, you have one gun. But if I have more money than you, I can now go and hire mercenaries. It happens today that people who want to build in their own land will hire gun. People with because boys, this what do you call those Abro boys? Thugs. People hire God to be able to build on their property. Anyways, so I've told you the best. Okay, let's keep digging. At least in the Middle Belt and in other parts of Nigeria and northern part of Nigeria, a conquest is ongoing, and I've explained it to you. So you now have the issue of doing nothing is not an option. So you now have the issue of self-protection or individual protection. Now, there's at the philosophical level, it's being debated now at the world philosophical level. The question is, should states retain the monopoly of violence? So by monopoly of violence, it means that I alone can be violent. So by that we mean that a state, in this case Nigeria, in this case Ghana, and then there's no country in the world that does not have violence. But the people who have access to violence is the state, is the country, is the government, saying that it must be the government that must have access to guns. If we say everybody have your nuclear weapon, even in the world of nuclear weapon, it is very few countries that have access. They work so hard to make sure that other countries don't have access to such technologies. So there is this thing called monopoly of violence, which means that it is only one person. Monopoly is that only one person has monopolized. You are the only one that is permitted to be violent. So at that theoretical level, the question is asked, should states be the only people who are violent within the state? It's a question, and political scientists are debating it. You have arguments for, you have arguments against, you can read it up. But at the operational level, Nigeria has answered the question, and the answer Nigeria provided is no. You need to know this. America has also answered the question, and America answered no. That is, citizens can bear arms. Operationally, Nigeria has answered in the negative. How do I know? There are non-state actors in Nigeria today. I'll give you an instance. There is a company called Tantita, owned by government. Government used to be Tampolo, used to be Niger Delta Avengers, those, what do you call them, militants. Today, Nigerian government can no longer protect its pipelines. It is now giving militants contracts to protect pipelines for them. Nigeria has answered that question operationally. The Nigerian Navy is unable to secure all their pipelines, so they now go to those boys and say, come, we'll give you small money, be protecting it for us. So at that theoretical level, should the state, now are these people part of the Nigerian army? No. Are they part of the Nigerian Air Force? No. Are they part of the Nigerian police? No. Are they part of the Nigerian Navy? And all of those things? No. But are they getting contracts from the federal government of Nigeria? Yes. If that is the case, then Nigeria has answered the question that non-state actors can operate within Nigeria, and the state is fully aware of them. Also in the north, the question has been asked and answered. Because as I have mentioned in one of my interviews, Lakurawa, which you are hearing of now, the terrorist group, is more than 8 years in Nigeria, and they were fully armed all the while. But the state was into power sharing with them until they turned against the state. It's not enough. You must be able to impose your will. But dear brothers, I will not go into the analysis of which one is better, but I will tell you this. The best way to impose your will is to do it through the government. The government's arms can be made to work for you. Put your person in government. Don't bother with arms, but make sure that the person who has arms, that the Nigerian armed forces, make sure that they are working for you. If they're not working for you, we'll see your community on Arise TV. So, within the context of Nigeria and the issues we are discussing, how does state policing, as being discussed, affect the dynamics? Because I've seen people who are arguing against state police, but they are arguing for let everybody have their arms. They say, oh, if you do state police, governors will now use the state police to be manipulating elections, to be doing this, to be doing that, and all of those arguments are genuine. But I now find it ironic that the person who is against state police is proposing let individuals have their guns. So, if individuals have their guns, don't you know that the same governor will still hire those guns to work for him? Have they not been hiring thugs to work for them in elections? A better structured, at least within the whole system of Nigerian police, where they have laws, where they have a hierarchical system of reporting, where they at least have formal school of training the police, where they at least have rank and file, where they have at least formal legal redress, you still see the abuse within the system. You still see the indiscriminate arrest. You still see the answers. You still see all of those things we criticize against. Imagine that is happening within an organized entity. What do you think will happen within an unorganized, unaccountable entity? The Southeast experimented with their own unknown government, with their own counterbalance. Look at where we are. The South experimented with their own counterbalance. Look at. Immediately they started that militancy. Almost all the oil companies moved their headquarters out of the South. And today they are paying taxes. A company doing all their oil business in the South is paying taxes to Lagos state government because you took up arms. Today, many Southeasterners cannot come back to the Southeast because you took up arms. Unregulated arm, it is a two-edged sword. And for the most part, usually after 3 to 6 months, they pivot. So when the militancy started in the Niger Delta, people were clapping for them. Oh, they were kidnapping foreign nationals. When the foreign nationals ran away, guess who they started kidnapping? Their own people. When unknown government, ESN, whatever nonsense that they call themselves, started, people were clapping for them. They go to the forest, the bush, they make a video where they are chasing herdsmen. Have you seen some of those videos today? Who are they chasing now? No be us. These people, they are kidnapping their fellow Southeasterners. Your best response to issues like this is to capture the government. Where you cannot capture the government, where you cannot put credible people in government, but you fight with your life to put credible people in government because the government has arms. At least force the government, compel the government to uphold justice. And we have done a class on that, on how to compel the government. And we read Luke chapter 18 or something? I remember the class. Navigating an irresponsive government. That class is navigating an irresponsive governance. Navigating an irresponsive government. How to compel an irresponsive governance or government to respond to you. But the best is to put your person in government. 2027 offers all those communities around those areas. You must fight and put your people in government. By your people, I don't mean people from your tribe. I don't mean people from your religion. I mean people who speak the language of justice. People who will uphold justice. That when your community is attacked in the middle of the night, someone who is a president who will say this will not happen again. Not a president who will be flying to Russia, flying to Paris, flying to, doesn't even acknowledge it. A president of a country says he's a president and 49 people killed in his country. He doesn't even go to send condolence message. No police chief has lost their job. No military chief has lost their job. That's not that. Their government has arms. Make no mistake, but the arms is not working for you. If you want to see the full might of the Nigerian military, put a credible person in government, and they will force that arm of the Nigerian state to work for you. For now, sometimes the arms are working against you. Have you noticed that those communities, when the youths now try to mobilize to do reprisal attack, the military will come in and sweep all their arms? Capture the government. It takes a lot of energy to arm the populace. Because it costs a lot. To arm the people, it costs a lot. It both real and opportunity cost. And it also costs a lot to fight and put credible people in government. But I'm saying to you that on the basis of analysis that I've done, which will not have the time to go into, that it is better. The arming the people might seem faster. But usually after 3 months of each experimentation, from country to country, from region to region that we have studied, it always pivots to the south. But eventually, it may be the right option when all else has failed. But as at today, I don't believe that Nigerians have done everything within their power to put in a credible government. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. We must capture the government, or at least force the government to uphold justice. So when you see farmers and herders fighting, who should you side? None. Ideally, none. Because it's not an ideal world, you now stay on the side of your... So if it's an ideal situation, you should just take sides. But since it is not an ideal world, there is almost always an aggressor. There is almost always an oppressor and the oppressed. If you have such equilibrium, go on the side of the oppressed. But watch out. Today's victims can be tomorrow's aggressor. Do you know there was a time in Nigeria when herdsmen were victims? That was why they started carrying bow. Farmers were killing them. By the way, it was the farmers that started this conflict. Go to Genesis chapter 4. It's a farmer that killed the first herdsman. Maybe no wonder herdsman will now say no go agree. They are protesting. But what I've seen in my studies is that it pivots. Sometimes farmers have the upper hand. Sometimes it swings again. It seems as if herdsmen have the upper hand. So it's always a pendulum. But whenever you are in government, look, if it's an ideal situation, don't take sides. But if you see that there are people who are oppressed, stop that. Psalms 82 verse 3 to 4 says, defend the poor and the fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and needy, deliver the poor and needy, free them from the hand of the wicked. So if the farmer is the wicked person here, free the herdsman. If the herdsman is now the wicked, free the farmer. Isaiah chapter 1 verse 16 to 17 says, wash yourselves, make yourselves clean, put away the evil of your doings from before my eyes, cease to do evil, learn to do good, seek justice. That's what, because people here will find themselves in government. Seek justice. Rebuke the oppressor, whoever it is. Whether farmer, herdsman, what, rebuke the oppressor. Defend the fatherless, plead for the widow. You know, when I said now in opening that if a man is dead, that he will turn all his advantages into a disadvantage. In summary, if a man is alive, he will turn all the things designed for his disadvantage into an advantage. How does the current crisis in Nigeria, how does it affect you? Nigeria needs animal products, make no mistake. We need nama. We need their hides and skin. We need dairy products. We need the bones. We need the meat. But we also need plant products. So how do people here in Boqer School turn this disadvantage into an advantage? So what are the alternatives? You go on Twitter, ranching. People are saying all manner of things on Twitter. All of those things we have said on Twitter, that is the problem to Fulani herdsmen. Guess what? Go and do it. And we will do one today. How can we get transformed men, people who are alive, people who will not prefer a cow over a human being? How can we get them to be headers? You need them. People who will not prefer a cow over a human being, how can we get them to head cows? How can we get transformed men into farming, into crop farming? How can members of this Boqer School start a ranch? We can, this 26 of us here, can contribute money and have a cooperative society this night and start a cow business. Because the more you keep buying cows from killers, the more the money you are giving them to buy arms. So every time you buy Nama, every time you buy from them, you are empowering them to wipe off a community. But guess what? We will still need to eat. So can we provide healthier and bloodless alternatives? Yes. How can we start a ranch? That's what we will discuss during the Q&A. What do we need? To set up a business, we have a lawyer here who can help us set up a business. We have people here who have 1 plot or 2 plots of land. We have people here who have 1 million here, 500,000 there, 200,000 here. And we can pull resources. But it does not cost much. Instead of complaining, how can we turn government policies into our advantage? If you love God, everything works together for your own good. Stop complaining on Twitter. Anytime you see government policy, no matter how dysfunctional you might think it to be, how can you turn it into an advantage? For instance, Tinubu creates Ministry of Livestock Development. That was July 9, 2024. I told Middle Belt leaders, this president does not care. Whoever influences him the most, he will move towards that direction. And it seems that there are people who are influencing him, and he's moving towards the livestock direction. And by the way, if you see what he did there, to be fair, he's trying to solve the problem. Of course, at the superficial level. But how do we turn this into advantage? How can we set up our own farm and ranches, which is what he's trying to encourage? How can we access that funding he's putting there? How can Christians, how can people who love God, how can transformed men? My goal of coming to this class is that this class will bet a ranch. And that in 6 weeks we must have a ranch, and we're looking at it. And then in the next 8 months, we will be selling cows. Of course, there are many more opportunities as the Holy Spirit gives you inspiration. Some of you may now begin to write laws about insecurity. Some of you may begin to write public policies as this. But today, my own inspiration today, as I look at the problem, I've seen the problem because I've interfaced with their leaders. We've written public policies. On this particular problem, we are trying to change some parts of the law. Those are public policy level. But everything should work together for what? For good. Since the people who we allow to head cows are now using it to kill, make we well know the kill, start doing our cow business. Thank you so very much. I will now open the mic for you to participate. The functional question that we're asking is, how can we start a partnership this evening? If you have your money, pledge it. If you're a lawyer, pledge your services. If you have a land, tell us where it is. I have one. By the way, when you saw me outside, I'm in my village now. I went to measure out the land in front of my house. I was checking how much will it cost to fence this place. Once we fence it, at least it's close to where I live. My people will be taking care of it, and then we get maybe 1 or 2 people to be care. This place, we can turn it into a ranch, and this particular place that you see here can take up to 50 cows. That's what I'm looking at. So the interactive session this evening is not a theoretical stuff. How can we be practical? So yes, I invite you to please, admin, look and see if people are raising their hands. If that is the case, please pass on the microphone to them. Yes, Mr. Ayodele Okedele, good evening. Please take the platform. Ask your question.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to hear from you again. I really want to thank you for the perspective that you took tonight, tracing it back to scriptures and applying it to our present society, and of course the call to action. I really it's something I'm particularly interested in. Just like you mentioned,
You want to change
because I'm a lawyer, and I'll be glad to render my legal services towards ensuring that it worked out. And of course, in other forms to, of course, bring ideas on board to ensure that it works out. So yeah, that's my allegiance towards seeing that this course is brought to life.
He said he will. Thank you. Thank you so much. Ayodele said he's a lawyer and he will help us with all the lawyer things to draft the memorandum of understanding, because there will be a paperwork. We've done one of the classes and said paperwork is involved in every business. So he will help us with the paperwork, the business, and I know that there's someone here who will help us with the CAC registration. So you help with this so we can start something. We are no longer complainers. I've told you in one of the classes, we are not the masses. We are not the poor masses. We are they that shut the mouth of lions. Who knows whether God wants to use this thing to transfer billions into our hands? Things that we would not have ordinarily gone into. That he's allowing problems because he wants us to look at somewhere. Maybe he's the one that set the bush on fire so that we can turn and see the burning bush. So yes, Ayodele, please write it down somewhere. So people who are interested, maybe we should have a quick meeting and see how, get the numbers, pass across the numbers, and then admin set up a meeting maybe on Tuesday so we can discuss and see how. I'm willing to commit money into this, and I hope that people here can commit theirs into this. Yes, especially people who have worked with us, people who know us, and then but you know, in a couple of months now we will do video and show you our ranch. So I invite you to be a part of it. I invite you to be a part of it. Yes, who else has is there questions? Mr. Israel, oh yeah, talk. How much are you giving us for the ranch? Then this is a business we should, and someone who knows how to do business analysis should do the business presentation so that people here can see how many months does the animal take to mature, how much do we buy it, where do we sell it, how do we protect the investment, and then what is the return on investment, because it's an investment, it's not an NGO stuff. So yes, please, Mrs. Amara, please take the floor.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I want to say thank you very much for what you have said tonight. It has been mind blowing. I've been writing. I want to also appreciate my friends who are also here. I see Professor Jasper here, and I also see on Sondamani as well. So, and I'm glad that my people are also here. So, I was going to ask or suggest, if, like you said, Tuesday, let's have a presentation of what is in it, what exactly is in this, because as human beings want to know, okay, fine, we're doing a ranching, what exactly, because even if you want to take it outside this platform to say who wants to invest in this, they're able to see the reasons why they should invest outside what we've heard tonight. So if we can get another opportunity where the business analyst does the whole business aspect of this, and then we're able to see this, even though a dumb agenda, but then what's the business in this? Because the human beings, you want to know, okay, fine, when we're doing this, what is in it for me at the end of the day. So I think it's something that we should do so that we all know where and how much we can actually go, how far we can actually go in investing into the project.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful. Believe me, this idea of ranching came to me around 5:30 because I've made some people who've been here know how much we put into preparing for our classes. I've only taken one call today. Sometimes it takes an average of 15 hours or more to prepare for one class, and it's because I respect the people here. You see, it's not just we quote the scriptures, but it's not just the scriptures. We also consult. We have the newspaper on our one hand, the Bible on one hand, and we're able to distill it. So it was when I was thinking about this. If you are going to tell people that they should see advantage in everything, what is the advantage that you are seeing? It was then that the idea of the ranching hits me. So I'll beg Mr. Please remind me the name of the person who spoke earlier, not Miss Amusi. Mr. Ayodele. Ayodele, are you also a business analyst? Can you help us, since you also live in Kaduna? So can you help us, do a little bit of survey, something a little bit, maybe not too technical, but tell us things that we should know. Who can help us prepare the document? Is there someone here who has, even if you're doing it for pay, we'll pay, right? We should be able to pay for the consultancy work. Who here has that knowledge? Can be either a volunteer consultant, or you can give us at half the price. So Mr. Israel, yes, go ahead, please. So Mr. Amarai, what you said is quite noted, and it will be done. We just need to mobilize from within to do it. Okay, well, if we're not able to source internally, then we cannot let this stop the thing. So we have to look for business consultants that will help us do a paperwork that will help get the conversation going. Beautiful. But believe me, now that the idea is here, some of you know how quick I action my ideas by the mercies of God. So I'll be happy to action this and maybe present updates maybe whenever it's ready. So if we're able to get this thing going on Tuesday, we'll see. Okay, so Mr. OOU also said he's willing. So please admit, check the comments and harvest data of people. Please, before we go, harvest all the data on the chats. Yes, Mr. Ogochukwu Ndife says, God bless and preserve your soul for this truth. It has always been my body. May God help us do his will. Amen. Mr. David Udofia says, this is my first appearance. It's an interesting discourse. I'm interested in the ranching business. Good to get details. So please, we will work to get a business consultant that will pay a minimal fee that can research this business and give us a paper so that we can get the conversation going. And then the lawyer will help us do the legal paperwork as is part of invest equity into the business. Mr. Osof's willing to join the business presentation. Happiness says, thank you, sir, for these teachings. Thank you so very much, Happiness, and God bless you. Eventually, the amount of money involved may not be too much. I think someone can buy one car at 150k if it is still 150k, and then grow it and see. The lawyer will help us to structure it quite well, and the business consultant. So thank you so very much. Our next class is on Wednesday, the 15th. In the meantime, Boqer School remains free to all participants, but it takes a great deal of effort to bring these classes to us. Feel free to also, maybe that's also why we're going to get into enterprise, to be able to fund some of the things we're doing. But feel free, if you're led, to, this is an account number, to support both myself and the support staff here who are doing a lot of work to see that these classes come to you. The videos have to be edited, the graphic designs, the slides have to be done, the internet subscription, the laptops, the microphones, the camera, the everything, that's the electricity, running generator to make sure that there's no what do you call it, NEPA wahala. So all of those things, each class costs money. I think every time I come here to teach, it costs money in the hundreds of thousands. But anyways, so if you feel like giving, there's an account number there for you. And God bless all our donors. We've been recipients of incredible amount of love and support from the Boqer School family. But again, the most people supporting what we're doing in terms of quantum of donation are not even coming to Boqer School. They just see our flyers and say, we support what you're doing. So if outsiders can see the impact of our work, how much so those of us who are in here. So if you're led, please support what you're doing. If you're here and you have your phone, I'll encourage you, and you love what you heard this evening, I'll encourage you to pull out your phone right now, go to YouTube and look for Boqer School of Governance and subscribe. I think we have 66 subscribers, or is it 88? We want to grow that subscriber first this January to 100, and then subscribe and engage the posts. If this video now that you participated in this class, once the video is up, go there, comment and share it with someone who needs these classes and the wisdom we're teaching. Our archive, we are on Telegram at Boqer School. Our Facebook is still down. Hackers took our Facebook page and they also took our Instagram page, but we've created a new Instagram page called at Boqer School _. By this January, we are creating a new Facebook page. It's probably going to be Boqer School _. We are on X, we are on TikTok, and then we are on WhatsApp. All the recordings are available on not Apple Music, on Spotify, on AudioMac, and on YouTube Music. You can also download all the audio of past classes. Every of those things are online and available on YouTube, on Telegram, and on almost all music streaming platforms. Our next class is on Wednesday, the 15th of January 2025, and by 9 p.m. we are going to continue in the 66-part series. Remember that the 66-part series that we are doing now is that we said that there are 66 notable events, notable individuals that provided leadership from the time of creation till the time Israel went into exile. And you have like 66 kings, that if you study these kings and study them detailed, that there is no possible governance outcome that was not recorded and captured by these individuals. And so that's what we did. We've done that of we are now dealing with Cain and Abel, but we'll soon move beyond Cain and Abel to move past them. But then eventually we'll trace it up to Moses, and then from there we start the kingdom. But we are doing 66 classes. In these 66 classes, you will see things about suicide, you will see things about democracy, you will see things about coup d'etat. It's not the military junta, IBB is not the first. You see coup d'etat in the scriptures. They were there, military administrations, all of them were there. And then by studying these governments, we can pick out things that we can extrapolate and learn things that we can apply to what is happening today. So we've not decided yet on the topic for Wednesday, but believe me, either we conclude on the Cain and Abel series and move quickly to the next, or we do one more class on them before we move to the next. So it will be an interesting conversation on Wednesday, and I implore you to come. Thank you so very much, and I'm happy for those who invited people. And please, if you see that this community is helping you, and if you're new here and you want to keep getting our messages, send a chat to the WhatsApp number on your screen, and then we can now get you more details and send reminders. If you are using an Android phone, if you scan the QR code on your screen, it will automatically load all our classes on your Google Calendar. What that does for you is that every day the Boqer School will hold, your Google Calendar will remind you. It will remind you 3 hours before the class, 30 minutes before the class, and 5 minutes before the class. That's how we set it up. So is there something I'm forgetting? Thank you so very much, and good night everyone.